Congressman, before we start, I know we want to get right to it. Hey, Julie, how are you? Before we get to it, I want to personally, in front of this crowd, thank you for all of the work you have done in the Spygate thing, right? Huge round of applause. Huge.
Well, you guys have all been great. Thank you. CPAC has been phenomenal. When there were very few people who would stand up, you all stood up. And a couple of years ago, you gave me an award when no one was giving me awards, for sure. So I want to thank CPAC for their continued support. But Dan, I'll tell you, last night I was on with Sean Hannity, or on the radio yesterday, and Hannity said there was only about 20 people that were between citizen podcasters like yourself to a few journalists. There's only 20 in the whole country. And I think that number's right, that would actually talk about Spygate, Russiagate, Ukraine hoax, impeachment hoax.
Yeah, you're right.
It had to be a lonely place even for guys like you.
It was, and I've seen a lot of citizen journalists out here. I met you when I was doing the show who were at a part in this too. So again, thank you very much. So let's get right to it. So there's been a recent development in Spygate. I think you probably found as interesting as I did regarding the genesis of this whole thing, this infamous character, Joseph Mifsud, this Maltese professor. Most of you know the story. For those of you who don't, we have this Maltese professor who shows up and meets with George Papadopoulos on the Trump team and is alleged to have said things like the Russians have this dirt on Hillary. According to the FBI's official story, with the dreaded air quotes, that becomes the genesis of this whole thing through Downer, who passes it on later. In other words, look, this Russian-connected guy, Mifsud, contacted the Trump team. Now, we've had this fascinating development. You've seen the recent 302s, FBI summaries of interviews of George Papadopoulos, where George Papadopoulos actually offered to help the FBI nail Mifsud. But that wasn't the original story, was it?
No, so I actually spent, matter of fact, one of the citizen bloggers, I think, was one of the first people to actually start to talk about these 302s. Yeah. And I was actually on Super Bowl Sunday, I read through those 302s like 3 times, because I just want to make sure that I wasn't misreading it. But essentially what you realize is that Papadopoulos, from the 302s, it's not what Papadopoulos says. Right. This is what the 302s say. Papadopoulos offered to help the FBI.
Get this Russian agent.
Get the Russian, to help them find. And then you look closer, and he actually offered to help the FBI locate Mifsud.
Do you think?
So, but here's the problem with that, and this is why we're looking at an additional criminal referral now on the Mueller witch hunt team. Is that in the sentencing memorandum, they actually lie to the court to say that something along the lines they allude to that Papadopoulos harmed the FBI in their search for Mifsud, and it's just not true.
It's not a conspiracy theory, like the liberal media keeps telling us. You know what's amazing, folks? Everything's a conspiracy theory. You know you're over the target when the blue check mark Twitter brigade starts calling Devin Nunes a conspiracy theory. That's how you know the story's true. You go right to, just follow Politico and the New York Times, and when you see conspiracy theory and Devin Nunes, know he's right over the target. Now, having been a former federal agent, and you being as good of an investigator as anyone, whether in Congress or whatever, you have a real mind for that. You've been phenomenal. We'd be lost without you on this case. And you all out there who help, I'll ask you, and I'll ask you in the audience to think about it too. Don't you find it quite odd that supposedly the genesis of this whole thing, this infamous Maltese professor, Mifsud, who's working with the Russians to collude with Papadopoulos, that Papadopoulos offers to help, and Mifsud magically gets out of the country in February, never to be seen again?
Yeah, so it's even way worse than that. So let's think about this for a second.
It's always worse than that.
Mifsud, okay, who supposedly starts this thing because you have the Australian High Commissioner supposedly goes to the State Department and says, hey, I talked to this, Papadopoulos said that this guy gave him this and blah, blah, blah about that possibly the Russians have information on Hillary Clinton. Now, fast forward, they use that, supposedly, as the predicate to open up the investigation, not into Papadopoulos, not into Mifsud, but into the entire Trump campaign, right?
Right.
So, and then they populate it with all the people that they want to investigate on the Trump campaign that clearly were coming straight from the dossier. Once you match up the dossier to what the FBI was investigating, clearly that information was coming from the dossier. Now think about this. Here you are. So if you believe their lie, and it's a lie, July 31st, okay, that's not when the FBI started investigating the Trump campaign. Fast forward all the way to Papadopoulos getting interviewed by the FBI. Mifsud is walking around in the United States Capitol, just steps away from our intelligence committee that we're investigating. You search back, wouldn't you have tried to find Mifsud before July 31st? Like, wouldn't that...
If you were trying to find them.
If you were trying to find... He's a foreigner. Yeah. You don't have to go to a FISA court. You don't have to do anything. We have 17 agencies that we spend billions of dollars on in this country. You think you'd try to go find the Maltese dude.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Some circle
right?
call that a clue. Yeah, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's where you would start.
Right.
Right? It wouldn't be hard to track him down. Right. And my God, if it's the end of democracy, like the Democrats and the fake news have said, I mean, hell, they should have sent every drone in our military after Mifsud.
Yeah. Now, folks, just so you understand the grasp of this, the whole cover story for investigating Papadopoulos and Page is this Mifsud. He is ground zero for this. Now, if he's not in fact Russian, this will lead to my next question, or a Russian agent, as I believe only Jim Comey is still alleging, but you can't believe anything Jim Comey actually says. Who is, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've done some homework on this. Mifsud has significant connections to Western intelligence or friendlies.
Yeah.
Now, you'd think the media would look into that, no? But they don't seem to.
Well, that's the other issue here that doesn't make any sense. If Mifsud is somewhere between Comey's definition of a Russia agent to what Mueller said that he had Russia connections, somewhere in that, I don't know what the hell Russian connections means, but I mean, I guess it could mean that you talked to somebody that was Russian one time, or drinking
exactly.
vodka, yeah. So if you're in that spectrum, you know, wouldn't it mean that you would be, you know, really, you know, looking for this person, trying to find him, using all the intelligence capabilities that we have? Someone should have went to find this person.
They didn't, and Mifsud has magically disappeared. Well, in the wind. Isn't that crazy how that happens? All these people who seem to have information. You know, it's also odd, all these approaches that keep happening to the Trump campaign or people affiliated with the Trump campaign. We've seen, of course, Stefan Halper, who approaches Carter Page and Papadopoulos. We've seen Svetlana Lakova, who's here. I just interviewed her before. Various approaches made to her by people very suspicious, academics and elsewhere. They always seem to come out of this academic circle in London. Now, you have said...
I call it the Cambridge Club.
The Cambridge Club? It's a
club you want to be part of because they get seem to get lots of government activity.
They do.
Including General Flynn, who was there in 2014. I bet that's where you were going.
That's where I am, but I wanted to ask you this first because I have to employ on my show the Nunes translator often. It's a joke we do on my show because obviously the congressman has classified information he can't share. So if you employ the Nunes translator, you can translate what he's actually saying. I think I'm right most of the time. I have a 99.9% effective rate of the Nunes translator. You say this a lot. You're on TV and you'll say there are no official channels or no official information was used to open up this case through Five Eyes, friendly intelligence channels on Trump. If you can elaborate for a moment on why that's suspicious and why that should worry everyone in this room?
Well, because it's real simple. Five Eyes is a very important term. It's about a relationship that we've had with 5 countries, all of us, you know, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, Australia. A very, very important relationship that we've had for many, many years. Well, there are tried and true processes in place where, you know, there's actually markings on documents that signify if this is a Five Eyes product. There was no such documents. And look, I would think for something as important as investigating a political campaign, counterintelligence investigation, if you're going to use the term Five Eyes, there damn better be some type of intelligence behind that. But there wasn't, because it's what we call in the intelligence business, it's called rumor intelligence.
Like SIGINT and human rumint?
Rumint, yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating point because, again, think about in a crowd the gravity of what the congressman just said. Multiple outlets, media outlets that lean left. It's, you know, not Bongino.com or Nunes.com or whatever. Outlets that lean left, like CNN and elsewhere, I think it's obvious they lean left, right, have already reported on an intelligence channel set up between the United Kingdom and the Obama administration have passed information. This is not a conspiracy. You can Google the article today. Jim Sciutto and Pamela Brown wrote it in April, I believe, of 2016. It says UK intelligence passed information on Trump to the Obama administration. But if you're saying that wasn't due to official channels, then why were they doing it through a back channel if that story's real, which CNN is yet to retract?
Because it was rumor intelligence, likely a lie. My guess is it came from some mix of the Clinton campaign, the Cambridge Club, and the dirty cops.
And do you believe that's why even in the FBI, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the intelligence officials in the FBI, because remember, we have the CIA intelligence channel, law enforcement channel, and the FBI, but do you believe that's why the case was isolated to headquarters? Let me make the question more specific. Specifically to keep it away from trained field agents who may have noticed right away that the rumor, you talk about the rumor channel, was colossal bullshit. Can I say that? I'm sorry if there's any kids in the room. But is there any, I mean, do you believe that? That's been a running theory for me for a long time. That's why they kept it in the little rooms in headquarters.
If you would have had official Five Eyes intelligence, it would have activated all sorts of activity, including sending that to the U.S. Congress, to the Intelligence Committee, which, we said, we knew by February of 2017, because we asked all 17 agencies, give us every single thing that you have. And of course, at that time, the deep staters, they wanted to give us everything they had.
Yeah.
And guess what they gave us? Evidence of Russian influence, the Trump campaign. Exactly zero. Nothing.
I've got about 3 minutes left here, but one of the tragedies of this is if you read one of the excellent books out there by Lee Smith, The Plot Against the President, he talks specifically about you, how you had been warning about the Russia threat for years.
Yeah.
Had been warning about the Russia, they downplayed your Russia threat until Russia became politically useful for them. And I think this is one of the problems Mike Flynn, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, a great patriot who I think is effectively being politically targeted. Mike Flynn had warned others about the threat of politicized intelligence, therefore became a target himself. Don't you find it awfully odd that the FBI, folks, they open up cases, think about this, on August 10th on Manafort, Page, and Papadopoulos, but they don't open up a case on Mike Flynn. You know what magically appears on August 10th when the FBI doesn't open up a case because somebody was clearly upset? A dossier on August 10th that has Mike Flynn's name in it. And you know who shows up the next day at FBI headquarters or to interview with the FBI? Halper, this spy, who magically has information about all the players of that. My question is, do you believe Flynn was a target? And do you believe he was a target because he understood the dangers of politicizing intelligence in the country?
I think that General Flynn has been mistreated would be putting it mildly. What's happened to him should never happen to any American, much less a war hero like General Flynn.
Yeah. Amen. All right.
And the frustrating part about this is that I know, because I was on the Trump transition team, one of the things that General Flynn wanted to do, he thought it was critically important that we empty out the swamp of all the senior intelligence folks that are in Washington, D.C. So they had a real reason to get rid of General Flynn. And because he was going to downsize the NSC, downsize the rest of the IC elements in the swamp, push people out to the field, which is where you can actually get intelligence. That's what he wanted to do. And so I know that because he told me this. Yeah. I mean, this is not rumint. This is him telling me, looking at a chart on all the people he was going to eliminate.
This is Nunes int, which is good stuff. All right, I got 45 seconds left. I think everybody in the audience, the big question is this, right? Is anybody going to be locked up for this? I mean, it's only the biggest political scandal. Where's the bracelets? Where's the handcuffs? My gosh. Right? My gosh. Only the biggest scandal of our time. Yes.
So I can tell you this, and I get this question where I go all over the country. I get this question every single day, whether it's in an airport or speaking to a large group. And here's what I will tell you guys. Obviously, the person that really wants people held accountable, the #1 person in America that wants people held accountable is the President of the United States. But I will tell you this, the second person in this country that wants these people handled appropriately is sitting right here, me. So I feel your pain. I know what you want. We're trying to do everything we can, Republicans in Congress, to do what we have the power to do. We don't have handcuffs. We don't have guns. We don't have badges. What we can do is provide evidence and make criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. And I know it's moving slow, but I have faith that Durham is going to get to the bottom of this. I really do.
I think I speak for the audience. I think I speak for all of you here. Our time is up. But I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Congressman, for having the guts to stand up for the biggest political scandal of our time. Thank you.
Thank you for all your support.
Thank you.